Julie here from Copy What I Use, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to use mnemonic memory tricks and palaces to remember information. And in particular today we're going to learn the 5 oceans in order of their size. I don't know if you can actually see that. I'll try and bring it as close as I can. Okay, so one of the easiest mnemonic memory tricks to use is to actually make a rhyme up to remember the list you want to remember. Now many of us have been using mnemonic rhymes without probably even realising it since childhood. But the rhyme that I'm going to use is one I found online because the list is Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, Southern and Arctic, okay? So that's Paisley. And I mean, you can remember it by Paisley if you want to, but I'm going to remember it by picking apples is so awesome. So we've extracted the first letter of each word on the list and then made a rhyme to prompt us to remember them. Okay, so we now know that it's going to be picking apples is so autumn, so we know the list is going to be Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, Southern and Arctic. But now if we want to take this a step further, those of you who saw my video yesterday, I was quite excited to share a memory technique in how to actually remember the £1 million question that came up on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, when the man actually won it, and they were about pirate facts. Well, we're going to do something a bit similar today. We're actually going to put a little bit more information onto this list, because who knows when we'll ever need to know this list of information, even if we do end up in the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire chair, who knows. Anyway, we're going to learn it. I mean, to be honest, the Pacific is, the figure for that is 168,723,000. I think I've said that right, because maths isn't my finer point. Hence why I also invested in a project called Past Maths GCSE in 4 weeks to help my children, because maths is not my stronger point at all. But anyway, how are we going to remember? We don't need to know the 723 at the end. We're just going to learn it by the first 3 numbers, or the first 2 numbers, whichever one is actually denoting how many million it is, because that sort of keeps it simpler for us. So for Pacific, the number is going to be 168. So we need to remember, so we're going to use the memory techniques that I was showing you yesterday, which is called memory palaces. In our first room, we're actually going to try and plant the number 168. Now we're going to remember the Pacific bit, not just from the rhyme, but we also need to know it's called the Pacific Ocean. Now my husband Roy, he always calls Pacific. So I'm going to actually remember the Pacific by thinking of specific. So I'm going to go in a specific manner with a paintbrush in my hand. Now a paintbrush, if you think of the shape of a paintbrush, and again I've covered this in some of my other videos about number shapes, it looks like a paintbrush. So we're going to remember the one bit by the shape of a paintbrush. And this paintbrush is going to go in and paint a trunk of an elephant. So it's going to go like that, and it's going to paint. Now that will help us think of the number 6, because if you think of an elephant's trunk, once it's curled up, it reminds us of the number 6, okay? So we've got to make a brush, and we're actually specifically, or Pacific in this case, we're going to paint an elephant's trunk, which is going to make us think of the 6 bit. Now for the 8 bit, we've got a snowman there, because if you think of a snowman, it's very much like a figure 8. So we can actually remember the 168 by remembering those 3 images, okay? In the next room, obviously we've got the Atlantic in there, and to remember the Atlantic bit, we're actually going to put a big huge atlas in that room, okay? And to remember, we actually need to, so that's going to remember the 8 bit, because we don't use snowmans in each of them. So we can actually remember it with an atlas. And then for the 8 bit, we're going to have a scaletrix in this one, because if you think of the shape of a scaletrix, it's like an 8, isn't it? So we're going to think of an atlas on the floor to remind us of Atlantic, and on the atlas, we're going to have a scaletrix, like a figure 8. And they're going to be 5 big cars on the scaletrix board to remind us of the 5. So we know then that the Atlantic Ocean is 85 million square kilometres. Okay, for the next room then, we're going to go into, and it's going to be an Indian restaurant, our next room. And in the Indian restaurant, we're going to have a man serving, and he's going to have a pointy nose, which makes us think of the number 7, okay, pointy nose. And he's going to be drinking a cup of tea, because I want to remember 70, so it reminds of tea. So that's how I'm going to remember the 70 million, which is what the Indian Ocean is. Now down the corridor, we're going to go to the next room, and let's keep the food theme going here, and it can be selling southern fried chicken. Okay, and that's obviously going to prompt us to think of the Southern Ocean. And when we go into that bedroom, we're actually owned, in this case, a southern fried chicken outlet. There's going to be a swan, which if you think of a shape of a swan, it's like a number 2. So that's going to make us think of 2. And he's going to be eating a sticky bun. And guess what sticky bun sounds like? 1. So that's to remind us that that's 21 million square kilometres. Now for the final room, we're going to go in there, and I don't know about you, but I actually love an Arctic roll. I haven't had one for a very long time. But we're going to go into that room, and there's going to be 15 Arctic rolls. Yum, yum. That's a lot of treats for me. And that's going to make us remember that the Arctic Ocean is actually 15 square kilometres. 15 million, obviously, not just 15. Okay, and that's how we're going to remember not just the list of oceans in order of largest to smallest, but also the numbers that actually help us remember how sort of large they are by square kilometres. So let's just recap that. So we've got the rhyme first of all, which is picking apples is so autumn, and that's to remind us that it's Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, Southern and Arctic. And then we've taken it a bit further then by placing prompts in each room to help us remember how many square kilometres or million square kilometres they are. In the first one, if you remember, it was a paintbrush, number 1, it was an elephant's trunk, number 6, and it was a snowman, 8, 168 million. The next room then, if you remember, was the Atlas, which is to remind us is Atlantic. There was a Scalextrics, which was an 8, and there were 5 cars on top of it, so that reminds us that's 85 million. The next room, can you remember what that one was? It was the Indian takeaway. And in there was a man with a pointy sort of nose, which is like the 7, and he was drinking a cup of tea, 70 million. And then to the next one, food outlet, which was a Southern Fried Chicken outlet, which reminds us of the Southern Ocean. And to remind us of that one, remember we had a swan, which is like a 2, and he was eating a sticky bun, which sounds like 1, so that's 21 million. And then you go into the Arctic, which was actually 15 Arctic rolls, 15 million. So I'm going to relay this list again, as I say, picking apples is so autumn, and I'm just going to rant them off now by what I've just learned. Pacific, which is 168 million. Atlantic, which is 85 million. Indian, which is 70 million. Southern, which is 21 million. And Arctic, which is 15 million square kilometres. So how's that for using mnemonic memory tricks and palaces to remember the 5 oceans by side, which if you keep prompting yourself to remember this from time to time, it will stay in your long-term memory forever, meaning that if you ever faced with a question like that in any exam or test, or even if you sit in the millionaire chair one day and it could be your £1 million question, who knows, £1 million question, who knows. Alright, so that's it for today's video. Just want to end by saying that as ever, if you're actually interested in these memory tricks, which I highly recommend because they're actually brilliant for storing lots of information and for helping your children, then I highly recommend the book Dr. Chan's GCSE Total Recall System, which comes with a 30-day full money-back guarantee, no quibble, so there's absolutely nothing to lose by trying it out. And it doesn't just have these type of memory tricks, it has other memory tricks, including the alphabet, rhyming system, story sequential link, and it even teaches you how to memorise a pack of cards. How cool is that? Alright, as ever, I want to just be transparent though and say that if you click on my link, because I will post a link at the bottom, there is a chance I could receive a payment, a commission payment, but you won't pay any more for it whatsoever. Okay, the product owner will just pay me a commission direct. Alright, so I'll pop a link at the bottom, and again I hope this has proved useful on how to use mnemonics and memory palaces, because I'm a big fan of them because they make learning so much more fun and easier to remember. That's it for today's video. As ever, if you want to keep watching my videos, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and to hit the bell at the top, because that means you'll get notifications then of when I post my next video. That's it for today. Bye for now.